The following podcast may contain adult language and conversations revolving around situations not suitable for immature audiences. Spoilers and general political incorrectness can often be expected, so listener discretion is advised.
They must be destroyed on sight!
Children are going to the most glamorous of all summer camps, Camp Mohawk. There's a 2-year waiting list, and every child has to be voted in. On top of all that, it costs $1,000 a week to go to Camp Mohawk. The question is it worth $1,000 a week?
It sure is. It's the best darn camp there is.
Well, are you connected with Camp Mohawk?
Well, I think so. I'm the program director, Jerry Aldini.
Well, how do you justify $1,000 a week?
Well, we have some special programs. We're doing Shakespeare in the Round again this year, of course. Our political roundtable, Henry Kissinger will appear. Yasser Arafat is going to come out, spend a weekend with the kids, just rap with them.
That's amazing.
And the kids wanted animals, so this year each camper will stalk and kill his own bear in our private wildlife preserve.
Are you sure the children can hack them?
We'll see. But the real excitement, of course, is going to come at the end of the summer. During Sexual Awareness Week, we import 200 hookers from around the world, and each camper, armed with only a thermos of coffee, $2,000 cash, tries to visit as many countries as he can. And the winner, of course, is named King of Sexual Awareness Week and is allowed to rape and pillage neighboring towns until camp ends.
That's incredible.
What do you expect for $1,000 a week? Hey, you have a good summer, too, huh?
Are you ready for the summer? Are you ready for the good times? Are you ready for some love and fun? It will start when the summer is ready for you.
Okay, we're back, and we're at episode 69, and this is going to be the last in this second installment of our sex comedy series. I'm your host, Lee Virtually Nil Russell, and I'm joined by my co-host, Daniel I Was in Goonies Harper. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I think it's, I didn't even realize that we were going to end the sex comedy series this time with episode 69, but obviously it's apropos.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Although my favorite line is probably, the only man who could fuck a Cheerio and not break it.
It's funny because I was actually looking for quotes just to use for that, and it's like Meatballs 4 is the only one that has maybe like more than 2 quotes and listed in the IMDb quote page of all things. Right. Jesus.
The burning star power of Corey Feldman.
Yeah.
Makes people, have to transcribe his words, He's like Jesus, we just I don't know where I'm going with that. Anyway, we should probably just move on, right?
Yeah. So we're going to be covering the Meatballs franchise, air quotes there as it is. We're not going to be talking so much about the first 2 movies. We're going to be focusing on the last 2 movies. So it's actually going to be kind of a reverse of our Revenge of the Nerds look at the end of our last installment of the sex comedy series. So, although I don't think we're going to go quite as in depth as we did with Revenge of the Nerds.
there's not enough. There's not enough here.
Yeah.
Some childhood memories I'll definitely talk about, but I mean there's no reason to.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Nerds is kind of a treasured cultural memory that people have that has like deep problems with it. Meatballs, not so much.
No. I think the only reason people remember them, to be honest, is because they're movies that someone decided to throw money behind. So they're still around because of that. But other than that, but yeah, we're sort of getting ahead of ourselves here. We'll start out with comments. We got quite a few comments this week, so it's nice. Our friend Stuart Balk from Midnight Movie Cowboys, as we were saying here, he thinks it's fitting that the last episode of the sex comedy series is episode 69. We could almost subtitle this the oral sex episode of the sex comedy series, I guess, in that case. Yeah.
Really, we should just call this podcast the Oral Sex Podcast. The Oral Sex Podcast.
Yeah.
Out of our mouths and into your ears. We might get 3 new listeners that way.
Yeah. Could be. Yeah. CB Fall says, crazy, ridiculous movies. Excellent podcast. That was in relation to the last episode. So you had another,
nice.
Another great comment from CB Fall. Appreciate it.
We'll read them in every episode, man. Just keep throwing
them.
Actually, I don't know the gender, so I shouldn't.
I assume it's a guy. It's a picture of a black gentleman in the Google pictures. So I'm just gonna assume.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. My friend Jamie Zinger says, and this is in response to the pick one actor, and for the rest of your life you can only watch their filmography and nothing else. He says Robert Duvall would be my pick. You get a few duds like The Godfather, Sling Blade, and Apocalypse Now. However, Days of Thunder is a cinematic masterpiece. Hit the pace car, he says.
Anything that gives you even one Tony Scott film probably isn't a bad choice, I would say.
Yeah, I could live with Tony Scott films. Way better than some of the shit that was coming out of the 80s and early 90s. So, yeah. And Cameron Sullivan says Ben Cross. And I actually had to go on IMDb and look up his filmography because I was only familiar with him in Chariots of Fire. That's all I could remember him from. But he's done a lot of TV. Some of it looks pretty good, although I don't think we'll count TV in this because he only shows up in certain episodes, and really you can only count those episodes. You can't count the whole series, as far as I'm concerned. So,
would you get to count those episodes? So if there's somebody who did like my favorite television episode, I don't know. That's kind of an interesting thing too.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I can see he was in the Star Trek reboot as Sarek, Spock's father in that one. So that was. Surprising. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff here I'm not even familiar with that I've just never watched. So that was an interesting pick to me. I've seen The Unholy. I've seen him in The Unholy. That's a kind of a shitty little horror movie from 1988. Yeah. Okay. More power to you, sir. I've not seen about 99% of his filmography, I gotta say. So.
Well, apparently this is a new series we need to start while we watch films by Ben Cross.
Yeah, the Ben Cross podcast to get us familiar with that shit. Not going to happen. Our friend James Murphy, in response to us talking about him last week, says, if he ever starts a Tumblr, Angry Irish Anarchist has to be the URL. He said he watched Defending Your Life for a third time in my life after Daniel talked about it last time out. That film is fucking genius, and it hides just how great it is behind the fluffy, watchable tone. Every single one of the jokes lands. I love the philosophy behind it, and not for nothing, it has Meryl Streep at the most attractive I've ever found her. Interesting. See, I'm not a big, I'm a fan of her acting, but I've always kind of found her to be a quote-unquote handsome woman. She doesn't really do it for me. So
if you're looking for Meryl Streep sex appeal, this is probably the place to get it. Either this or adaptation. Because when she gets high towards the end, and she's kind of doing she kind of gets a little sexy there. But Defending Your Life is probably about the sexiest you can get out of Meryl Streep.
What about her turn as Margaret Thatcher?
I didn't see that, so But you know me, I have a fetish for Margaret Thatcher.
Oh yeah, everyone does. What a fucking boner killer. Goddamn. He also says, in response to our idea that maybe we should do the Skull and Green Room on the same episode, he says, why not? I'm enough of a nerd about punk and hardcore to have a few interesting things to say about it. And he also says that my Vinnie Jones impersonation across different films is one of the funniest things ever on the show. Thank you.
I agree with that because I re-listened to the episode, or I listened to the episode after you put it up, and I cackled at it. In fact, I thought I'd take a moment here and just give the audience more what they want. I have a list of films that we've covered on this podcast.
Okay.
And I'm going to get Lee to do his thing of throwing Vinnie Jones impersonations into these films.
Oh, Jesus.
So, I don't know if Lee is drunk enough for this yet, but we're gonna see. So
I'm hitting the scotch right now, so start throwing them at me.
Yeah. Okay. I did not tell Lee I was going to do this, but I saw that comment and said, this is going to happen. So, are you ready, Lee?
Yes.
The Big Sleep.
The Big Sleep. Listen, you twat! I'm trying to solve a mystery here.
She killed in ecstasy.
Oh my god. Hey, what did you do with that knife down there, you little tot?
Motel Hell.
We never covered that one.
We did cover that one with Just Before Dawn.
Oh, that's right, we did. God damn. I like to grow me vegetables.
Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Holy fuck. Holy fuck. Look at this little psychic girl going around. What's she doing? Moving things with her mind.
Blood Simple.
Blood Simple? Oh.
He just kind of fits into Blood Simple, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's just... I'm in this movie.
Zapped.
Hey, I like when all the clothes comes off. It looks really good.
Stridulum.
Oh, fuck me. Another little psychic girl. Jesus Christ.
Van Nuys Boulevard.
Really? Your fucking name is Cooch? Cooch?
Just two more. The Zero Effect.
Oh, la-di-da, look, Mr. Sherlock Holmes can't fucking leave his bloody room to talk to anybody.
And 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh my fuck, will someone fucking do something already? I'm getting so fucking bored.
That one's just from my friend James Murphy.
Did I do well? I'm just swinging for the fences there.
I think so.
Right. I'm not going to promise that this is going to be a recurring fucking thing, but who knows? Maybe if I'm drunk enough on future podcasts, Daniel wants to surprise me every once in a while.
Yeah. I might throw it in when I have a good title for you. We'll see.
It'll be like what's his name? Who is the martial arts guy? He's always attacking Inspector Clouseau in the Pink Panther films out of nowhere. Yeah. All right. And
this podcast is going downhill fast, but we are talking about the Meatballs tetralogy today. So how far down can it really be going?
We really need something. Yeah. And final comment from our friend Mike Murphy from Badass Boobs and Body Counts podcast says, while in LA last night, I popped into a convenience store and saw that Maxim magazine is still on the shelf. So, yeah, it's still in publication. Well, shit, I got to get a subscription now, I guess. Let's see, the last time I read a Maxim magazine was maybe 15 years ago, something like that. I shudder to think what it looks like now. It was pretty fucking inane back then, so.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, super rapey, too. Kind of really nasty stuff, for the most part. Just like this combination of like this 13-year-old mentality towards women and like capitalism. It's terrible.
And unlike Playboy, it didn't have short stories and articles. So
right. It's literally like, because like Playboy, like you could take the nudes out of that, and which they've now done, and you still have like this really kind of interesting like politics and life and style. I mean, you basically have like Esquire with like a little bit more, nudity in it. Yeah. Maxim was never that. Maxim was just like stupid, Like it was like there's no content to it at all, So it's like, I mean, it's a stroke book without the stroke and without the book. It's nothing.
Hey, yeah, this is Rob Zombie, and when you're not watching my wife's flat ass deflate even more in every subsequent film I put her in, you should be listening to They Must Be Destroyed Outside Movie Podcast. Yeah, Mars News Podcast.
So I don't think either of us have anything we've watched this week. We've both been kind of too busy, I think. So we're going to forego that little bit of the podcast. And unless there's any other business you want to clear up there, Daniel, I think we can just move right on to the films.
I'm ready if you are.
Okay. So I think, first of all, we'll get the first two out of the way here real quick. Talk about the first Meatballs.
You saw what he did to Saturday Night. Now watch Bill Murray demolish Summer.
Are you ready for the summer?
300 kids from the city escape to the woods for a summer of wholesome fun in the sun.
I'm the program director, Jerry Aldini. Is that a bra you're wearing, or are you expecting an assassination attempt?
And I have what doctors call very active glands.
Tripper, is there something seriously wrong with you?
Meet the head counselor who knows the facts of life, but forgot them.
What the hell's going on here?
So this year, each camper will stalk and kill his own bear in our private wildlife preserve. These are the camp rules. Maury would like you all to take a look at these. See in here if you want to check these out a little bit later. How's the light?
Okay.
Yeah, for now. But if you don't win, we cut it off. But more important than the score of this game is to score at the big social at our place tonight.
It's not how you play the game, but how you win that counts.
I'm talking to you with the exceptionally round hair.
For the glory of the human race. It just doesn't matter if we win or we lose. It just doesn't matter.
The real excitement, of course, is going to come at the end of the summer during Sexual Awareness Week. We import 200 hookers from around the world, and each camper, armed with only a thermos of coffee and $2,000 cash, tries to visit as many countries as he can. And the winner, of course, is named King of Sexual Awareness Week.
You'll be cheering for Bill Murray this summer in Meatballs.
Started the whole thing, came out in 1979, directed by Ivan Reitman. And of course, I think this is most famous for being basically the first pairing of Bill Murray and Harold Ramis as a sort of a partnership. And of course, it was Bill Murray's first starring role.
I did not do a synopsis for the first two films, but I did watch the first two. Man, for me, Meatballs 1 is really just it's Bill Murray's movie. You know, I mean, this is clearly the best of the four. You know, first of all, I mean, it's the one that's a real movie. You know, with the beginning, middle, and end. It's got this really interesting relationship between Bill Murray and the child actor Rudy. It's really just heartwarming and fun and goofy, and there's some stuff in it you could talk about. I mean, Bill Murray is definitely not. You know, there is a little rapey scene there towards the middle of the film, but you know, I've only seen this a couple of times. I saw it on Comedy Central way back in the day, but man, this is just kind of goofy, good-hearted fun. You totally see why Bill Murray became a star, because he's just amazing in it, and it's well directed. I mean, it's it's a summer camp movie. It's kind of the prototypical summer camp movie, you know, and it just works on that level. It doesn't have to be more than that, and it doesn't have the raunch that the later ones did.
Yeah, it's a convincing summer camp movie, like how I said, like Sleepaway Camp and The Burning both had sort of, to me, they had convincing like scenes of like, yeah, this felt like a real summer camp going on. Yeah. This is essentially those movies without the murders and the nudity.
Yeah, I did get about halfway through it and go, like, I kind of expect a serial killer to show up any second now, because we're so used to seeing, you know, the summer camp genre just, you know, invaded by, you know, somebody with a sharp implement. But it works despite the fact that it doesn't have, you know, people being murdered left and right. It's a legitimately good movie. It's you know, historically important for Bill Murray, if for nothing else. Ivan Reitman, kind of not. I don't think this was his first film, but it was one of his very, very early films.
Yeah, it was his first big break anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, it was a big success too. I mean, it was budgeted for $1.6 million, and it actually came out with $43 million at the end of.
That's a big hit for 1979. I mean, that's a monster for 1979. So
yeah,
but I don't really have anything more to say about it. You know?
No, I mean it's good. I mean it's very mild entertainment. It's definitely for like 13, 14-year-olds, somewhere around there. Like it's really good for that because, you know, they're getting to the point where they're going to start thinking about sex and talking about sex. And this movie kind of hints at that to a certain degree, but it doesn't go, like you said, it doesn't go full raunchy or anything like that. So, yeah, so it's actually, it is a PG movie, and it's actually kind of like a, you know, a pretty good example of a good PG movie from that era. So
it's basically the real thing that Wet Hot American Summer is like aping. You know, it's that sort of like baseline thing. And honestly, I'd rather watch this than Wet Hot American Summer, just because, you know, like Wet Hot American Summer. I mean, it's fine, but it's like it's playing it so arch. It's playing it so like against itself that there's so many layers of irony that it's kind of buried in that it just kind of becomes this like. What are you trying to sell? I mean, are you loving this or hating it or making fun of the fact that you both love it or hate it? Or are you like you know, whereas this is just is what it is. And so you really get that sense. And again, Bill Murray, charming as a motherfucker. Like, you get why this guy became a star. I mean, this movie wouldn't work without Bill Murray at its center.
Well, I think this is like sort of the beginning of where he legit becomes the funniest guy in the world for a few years, like in the 80s, right? Like he's getting there right here. And I mean, he just walked onto this too. It was like he was last minute, like they didn't even know if he was going to show up for the movie, and he just sort of last minute walked on wearing his own clothes. Like
right.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, what can you do? I mean, Bill Murray totally owns this thing, and it's worth watching, especially for Bill Murray completists. I mean, you should see this film. So, yeah. One
of my favorite Bill Murray scenes ever is actually the scene where he is standing outside the bus and kind of pretends like he's the camp counselor for the snooty camp, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Talking about, you know, all the things that the kids at the snooty camp get to do. Oh, for $1,000 a week, of course you get to
what was it like this?
And kill your own bear, you know?
Yeah, that's good. So now we can move on to Meatballs Part II from 1984, and this is actually directed by someone who's directed something else we've covered in this podcast, Ken Wiederhorn, who did Shockwaves.
Nice.
And actually, in this movie, there's a point where the kids are actually watching Shockwaves. So he throws his own movie in there just for fun. I can't confirm this, but I think this movie was not originally supposed to be a sequel to Meatballs. I'm pretty sure, from what I've read, it's sort of a combination of two scripts that were just floating around, and they stuck the Meatballs name to it, essentially.
It's like 5 movies. I mean, I was watching this week and going like, okay, so there's the plot with the dude who's like the reform school guy who gets sent to camp to take care of kids for some reason.
Which makes no sense.
Which makes no sense whatsoever. But okay, it's a movie. Okay, we got you. And then he gets there, and suddenly he's like pressured into becoming a boxer. Okay, that's a completely different movie that's happening inside this movie. And then you give the kind of kids subplot kind of running around and being kids doing their thing. And then there's a space alien.
Yeah.
Like there's an E.T. ripoff. Like, just right smack dab in the middle of this movie. I mean, so there are at least 4 movies, all competing for your attention in this thing. Not a one of them is actually like interesting or entertaining. No. I will say the first like 10 minutes or so, there's some cool gags. There's some funny little reversals, like when they're dropping the kids off at the camp and stuff. You know, there's some nifty stuff there. But like, you know, it's few and far between after that.
It's such a fucking mess. And there's a lot of good talent in this too. I mean, you got people like Kim Richards, who's really good in this. Like, as the sort of female lead, who's like the most naive girl ever, you know, like
John Larroquette, who I will love in everything always.
John Larroquette playing the obviously gay guy from the military camp across the thing, trying to hide it.
And you have this like military industrial complex like commentary that it's trying they are kind of deliberately talking about. They're trying to do this kind of broad satire involving this like military camp and contrasting it with the kids camp, the kind of hippie camp. It goes nowhere. It does nothing. You know, There's no teeth to it at all. I mean, John Larroquette gives it some teeth. Oh, you got Paul Rubens in this, just kind of being charming and fun.
Two different roles. He's the bus driver, and he's also a Hare Krishna for a brief part. You even have, as one of the kids, Jason Hervey, who was like the older brother in Wonder Years.
Oh, I missed him completely in this.
He's just one of the kids in this, eh? And of course, Richard Mulligan is the camp owner. I like Richard Mulligan. I think my favorite thing of him is Man Called Horse, or whatever it is, the where he plays General Custer.
I don't think I've seen that.
The what movie is it? The guy from The Graduate. What's his fucking name?
Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman. It's I can't. It's the one where he's the old cowboy, like he's an old man, like 100-some years old, and he's in a retirement home, recounting all of his adventures in the Old West. And anyway, Richard Mulligan has a brilliant performance in that as General Custer, just playing him as like totally fucking batshit nuts. Like it's great. It's great.
Well, we'll put that on our list. That sounds fascinating.
There's rumors here that I've read across the internet over years, like doing research on this, where it's taken out of the trivia now for the actual IMDb. They've cleaned up the trivia section. So I don't know if it was legit or they decided it was fraudulent and took it out because of that. There was a interview apparently at some point with Misty Rowe, who plays Fanny in this, as the sort of blonde bombshell who's always sneaking off with the head counselor Jamie to try to make out, and they always get interrupted. Apparently, and there's two different stories here. Apparently, in one it's saying there's like 7 minutes of sort of sexually explicit stuff that was cut out of this, and this never saw it because they wanted to sell this to kids, so they removed it to lower the rating. And then there's another account of where there was over 80 minutes of sex scenes shot for this. And that account actually, I was pretty doubtful of this, but if someone wrote this out, they went to a lot of troubles to make a fraudulent account of this, because it actually goes in detail like what scenes there were in it that were cut out, and there's like apparently just tons of nude scenes cut out of this and sex scenes cut out of this that would have taken it up to an R.
Well, if you imagine basically, I mean, if you combine this kind of idea where it's two different films, so imagine you've got the kind of like reform school guy, like the tough guy who's coming in, he has to become a boxer, and then that is one movie, and then the kids in the space alien is another movie.
Yeah.
Well, you can kind of imagine, okay, take the kids out of it, put a bunch of sex scenes in it, and that's kind of a raunchy comedy about this guy who's, coming off and he's, having to confront nature or whatever while, becoming a boxer and, I don't know where the different things, but that's its own movie. And then the kids in the space alien is another movie entirely.
Yeah.
That would sort of make sense. I mean, 80 minutes of like nude scenes. I mean, this becomes like hard bodies,
Yeah, because they say it's like over 24 sex scenes and just nudity scenes, and apparently it's all centered around Misty Rowe and the guy who plays Jamie in it. Apparently, that almost sounds like it's a whole different movie. Like that sounds like it's some sort of European sex comedy where like the entire movie's about them trying to have sex, and they keep getting interrupted by all the side characters, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, that sounds way more interesting than this piece of crap we've got in front of us here,
Yeah. Because even apparently, like I was looking in the quotes and stuff for this and I don't know if these are legit quotes from the script or whatever, but it seems like there was like a lot more explicit language and stuff in like one version of the script apparently. And you can sort of see hints of that. The movie seems like it's trying to be raunchy, but it keeps pulling back at the last minute. Everyone's going around calling the guy's dicks pinkies, like there's that sort of level of juvenile shit in this, and it just never steps over that fucking line. Honestly, it really hurts the film for it, because this film needed something to spice it up, because it's just...
Well, it needs it has to be one thing or another. Like, if it's the kind of silly kids movie about the space alien, okay, that's fine, but then you've got the other plot, which doesn't fit in with it at all. In the first film, you've kind of got the adults and the kids kind of, you've got Bill Murray and, there's the kind of romantic subplot, and then you got the kids. It works because it's kind of like, then you've got the Bill Murray or the Rudy Tripper kind of relationship kind of merging these things together. Here, I guess you get like the end, the floating, where they make the guy float and he's like fighting, he's boxing. Like,
yeah,
that's like the one scene I remembered from being a kid and seeing this movie. And I'm like, there's a green space alien, and then who's Jewish.
Yeah,
like
the Jewish space aliens,
explicitly Jewish. They're Jewish space aliens, there's a reading of that. I'm not even gonna like. There's no need to go there. But
no. But yeah, this is just so disappointing, especially because like when I was a kid and the first time I saw this was on TBS. So you see this on TBS and you get those hints of raunchy stuff, and you're like, okay, so they've cut it off. They've cut it out for TV, right?
So I need to go get the tape, and then
and then I recognize like,
there's nothing here, you know.
What the fuck is this shit? Yeah, it's just it's perplexing, and it's like they could probably make some money off of this because this apparently is a financial failure. From what I've read, I only got the box office, which is $5 million. So if they actually spent more than $5 million in making this, then Jesus Christ,
I don't know where the budget went.
No, to that alien, apparently, the alien that can blink and its eyeballs glow, and that's about it. Yeah,
and it looks kind of like a stoner, you know.
Yeah.
It is interesting though that they went in this direction, like they were doing like the Porky's thing of like, okay, Porky's has been out, so we're wanting to kind of raunch it up a little bit, but then we're merging it with this franchise, which is kind of fundamentally aimed at, you know, children.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're trying to walk this balance. And I mean, there are ways of walking that balance. You can kind of do kind of a raunchy, fun thing that's still kind of targeted at 13-year-olds, you know. But then it's way too. I mean, it's just a mess. I mean, there's just, you know, like there's no thought behind it at all. It's just
too many thoughts, honestly.
Well, there's too much stuff kind of crammed in, and then just not stitched together at all. And then they have this effect. And I mean, like, you know, stoner space alien, you know, like with magic, you know, telekinetic powers, hanging out with a bunch of kids. That's a completely different kind of fun movie that you can imagine, you know, watching. But yeah, no, it's just bizarre. I mean, I was almost like, we need to like do a commentary for this and just get really wasted and watch how terrible this is. Like, do like for the paywall, you know, do like drunken commentary for Meatballs 2.
I think we actually, keep that in mind. We should do that. We should try that at some point, just as a trial run to see if we get a commentary to work, or we'll do a Google Plus hangout while we're watching the movie at the same time, and we'll see if we can get that to fly. Yeah, I'd be very interested in doing a commentary on this because honestly, it's so disappointing that it kind of becomes a piece of shit in spite of itself. Like, it just kind of. But yeah, I think we can move on from that fucking abortion, and
there's no reason to. No one should ever talk about that movie any more than we already have. Although now we're probably going to do a commentary for it, so you know. Yeah,
so there you go. So now we can move on to the very different Meatballs 3 Summer Job.
School's out, it's summer again, and the party's just getting started. So come on along, join the Meatballs for fun, sun, and plenty of crazy action. And after sexy angel Sally Kellerman hits Heaven's Gate,
it's just the way I pictured it.
She's sent to Earth to earn her wings.
I think I've gone from horny to crazy. This is going to be tougher than I thought.
And the whole place goes topsy-turvy when she turns the camp nerd into the last word in love.
But you'll always be a loser.
I wouldn't think that if I were you. Oh, shit.
So join Sally Kellerman.
Get some rest, kid. Tomorrow's a big day. Come with me.
In Meatballs 3.
From 1986. Directed by George Mendulik, written by Janice Allen, Lynn Blum, Daniel Goldberg, Bradley Kesden, George Miniluk, Michael Pazornek, and Harold Ramis. Now, some of the names from here are actually from the first movie's writing credits, and that's solely because this actually carries a couple characters from the first movie over to it very, very fucking loosely. Sally Kellerman as Roxy DuJour, Patrick Dempsey as Rudy, Al Waxman as Peter, Isabel Mejas as Wendy, Shannon Tweed as the Love Goddess, Peter Snyder as Tom, Mark Blutman as Andy, Justine Campbell as Val, and the very awesome Maury Chaikin as Huey the River Rat Leader, and also the very awesome George Buza as Mean Gene. And I'll let you get over to the synopsis there, Daniel.
Little Rudy from the first film is all grown up, sort of, but unfortunately still seems stuck in his adolescence. He's a fresh high school graduate and has decided to take a job working under his old camp counselor, Tripper. Unfortunately, by the time Rudy arrives at the camp where he's decided to spend his summer, trippers decided to sell the place to the thuggish troglodyte Mean Gene, who refers to Rudy as little more than Grunt and is hugely overprotective of the Love Goddess, a gorgeous woman supposedly married to the lumbering oaf, but whose true relationship will be revealed by the end of the film. Like all protagonists in the nerdy kid wants to get laid subgenre, Rudy wants desperately to get laid. And the bevy of gorgeous bikini-clad drunken revelers definitely aren't helping his case of blue balls. So it's with a bit of a side-eye that I inform you that there's a lovely, if unconventional, young woman named Wendy who wants nothing more than to get a little taste of Rudy's trouser snake. She even goes so far as to watch a cheesy porno movie starring Roxy DeJour with him, but he's a big fan of the buxom blonde and is far more interested in the film than in the soft feminine princess throwing herself at him. So it's definitely up Rudy's alley when the porno star dies on the set of one of her films, and in order to get into heaven must perform a single good deed for someone still on Earth. DeJour takes pity on our nerdy protagonist and decides to come back to Earth to lay him herself. Alas, she has no corporeal presence as a ghost, although it turns out she develops an array of telekinetic powers and must rely on her ability to dress Rudy like preppy scum and give him hugely rapey dating advice in order to get his dick wet. Also in this film, a wet t-shirt contest that lingered longer in my childhood memory than it does on screen, lots of bikinis and a few bared breasts, lots of deeply over-elaborate watercraft, and an actual motherfucking jet ski gang called the River Rats that enters the film to Ride of the Valkyries and predates Waterworld by over a decade. Also, a major subplot involving the uppy assholes in the town betting on whether hapless young men can reach the Love Goddess before a Mean Gene can literally throw them through his roof. Knowing all that, do you even care if Rudy is able to screw his socks off or not?
And boy, didn't I, because this isn't Rudy. This is not Rudy. This is a totally different character. They just stole the character's name and put it on this cringy dork who becomes a cringy rapist. I enjoy this movie, but that is a terrible decision that they made when they.
I mean, the message of this film is no means yes.
Yes.
The message of this film is no means yes.
Yeah.
Oh God. So this is the reason I wanted to do this for this podcast, because this was the one of the sex comedies I watched the most as a kid. And I'm starting to realize that I came to these really young.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I saw this, I mean, if it's 86, I saw this when I was 8 or 9 years old. Like, that was the era in which I saw this. And I saw it a bunch. I hadn't seen this in, 20 years probably. But rewatching it this time, I knew every scene as it was happening. It was just, like, ingrained in me. My wife watched it with me and was poking fun at me for, like, oh, now I know where your sense of humor comes from. Oh, I get it. I get it completely. Yeah, you tell those jokes. You tell those kinds of stupid jokes. I'm like, honey, stop it. This is it's almost embarrassing how many times I've seen this film, and obviously the impression that Wendy made on me because
Oh, I love Wendy. So
she's great. But yeah, no, this was a film that I saw a whole lot as a kid and remembered it being raunchier than it is.
Yeah,
there's like one scene really that's kind of got like a bunch of tits in it, and that's only for a second. But for the most part, it's really just kind of bikini-clad people dancing and kind of getting drunk and kind of having sex. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. And I guess in my kind of young brain, I didn't like differentiate between like the actual nudity and the bikini stuff, And I think that's sort of where.
Well, yeah, your imagination starts to wander when you're younger like that, because you see like there's a scene early on where Rudy's all distraught because he's not getting laid. And he's everywhere he looks, he sees like a boat rocking or a van rocking, and it's like you get those images in your mind. Oh, I know what's going on there, and you think you see it, and then of course at the end there it's like, oh my God, I gotta get fucking laid, blah blah blah. And it's like, man, and it's like, this isn't Rudy. What the fuck? Who is this kid? This guy is Spaz from the first movie more than he's fucking Rudy. It's like, wow.
Patrick Dempsey. This is his first major film role, maybe his first film role ever. Perfectly fine in it. I mean, you definitely see kind of Can't Buy Me Love, which is the one we might, I could definitely see doing Can't Buy Me Love, kind of next year we'll do this if we keep podcasting sex comedies every year. And then, you kind of like, this is what I knew him from. And so, and then when he comes out and does like Grey's Anatomy and he's like, oh, look at how hot he is. I'm like, oh, I remember when he was the nerdy kid in Meatballs 3.
Yeah, I like a lot of the cast in this because, like the first Meatballs, this came back to Canada for this production. Like Meatballs 2 was in California, And then Meatballs 4 ends up being shot in California as well, I think, after this. But yeah, this was Canadian shooting. It was a tax shelter thing. So you see a lot of Canadian actors pop up there, like Maury Chaykin in one of his earliest roles. He's since passed on, but I've always loved him in just about everything I've seen him in. George Buza, big time fucking B-movie Canadian actor who's been in tons of stuff, still doing tons of stuff all the time. Al Waxman, who is the King of Kingsington, which was a popular TV series up here in Canada at one point. And he's been in tons of shit. And even Shannon Tweed, I believe, was originally a Canadian, I think, before she became the trophy wife of Gene Simmons. Carolyn Ray is in this. I think her first role.
She's like she's one of the bikini clad girls, like not even credited. But yeah, no, this was one of her first like things she was in. So yeah, there's a lot of talent behind this. I mean, I one of the things I run into when I watch these things that I like know so well and I watched so much as a kid, and I'm like, I kind of have to ask, like, is this a good movie? Like, is this a reasonably decent film, Lee, or is it as terrible as I think it probably is?
Well, its ideas about sex are incredibly terrible, but it is.
Yeah, that's obvious. Like,
yeah,
you know,
but it is it is kind of entertaining for what it is. It's
oddly diverting, right? You know, it's sort of. I think that this tetralogy, which I'm going to use the word tetralogy in describing Meatballs, so, to elevate the material.
Hey, once the box set comes out, they can credit you.
Yeah. I think that the issue that the whole series after the first one kind of ran into is the first one does kind of reach that balance of kind of being both for kids, but also kind of having some of the adult stuff in it. And all the future films just fail miserably at striking that balance. They don't even try. I would say the third one is the second best of the series. I think it goes 1, 3, 2, 4, honestly. Kind of succeeds at being the kind of raunchy sex comedy. I wish it was raunchier and had more more actual nudity. I think it would kind of play a lot better. Well, it's a little bit grungy and grimy. Like, I mean, it's kind of in a nice way. The way that we talk about like the Van or Van Nuys Boulevard. Kind of have that more lived-in feel. This feels like a movie about. I mean, Summer Job. It's terrible as Summer Job was. One of the reasons that was terrible is because you never really felt like those kids were actually working, Rudy works. Like, Rudy actually, like, you get, like, he actually has a shitty summer job.
Oh, that bathroom is gross, man. That bathroom that he's cleaning. Oh, my God.
Oh, I can't even imagine, And it really feels like this kind of rundown little rinky-dink, like, like, sexy river bar place. I mean, like, it literally has this, like, floating platform called the Wet Bar, which is basically like when we're too full, it just starts to sink. And I mean, it's just you can just imagine this being like where all the like local rednecks go to like get chlamydia,
and when there's that scene with the Wet Bar there where it says maximum capacity 30 people, and they obviously have more than 30 people on it. It starts to sink. I'm sorry, all those people died from electrocution because they got all those fucking wires running right over to it, and it's sinking in the water. They're all dead. They're all gone.
Yep. Everybody's gone. That's it. We're dead.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like, wow, Tripper, you really let that place go down to shit. No wonder you left. You probably wrote it off for tax reasons and got the fuck out of there.
Tripper's running a con on Mean Gene there, You would think he would mention it to his young pal, like, oh, by the way, don't.
Again, like, it's not the same character because that's a dick move. Tripper would not do that to fucking Ruby.
Well, and here's the thing, like, I saw this way before I saw the first, so I never knew, like, oh, that's the background. In fact, not until I was watching them again for this podcast did I realize, oh, that's supposed to be the same character. Yeah, like Tripper is Bill Murray's character in the first Meatballs, and I'm like, oh. Suddenly, the fact that things they don't make any sense, but suddenly it makes sense as part of this franchise.
Yeah. So when you think about it, this is actually Meatballs too, really.
Yeah, this is the real sequel to Meatballs. This is the only sequel to Meatballs.
Yeah, and this was filmed in 1984, actually. So it actually sat on the shelf for 2 years before it even came out. So.
Yeah. So, which then just goes back to like the second film, which was released in '84. Mm-hmm. So you got to think like, so they're kind of producing these two films at sort of around the same time. And just slapping the Meatballs name on them. Yeah. I don't know. Like, it feels like, I mean, and you got to think also 1984, Ivan Reitman's off. Your main cast from Meatballs is off doing Ghostbusters, which becomes the biggest film comedy of all time for like a decade. Yeah. And you got to think like, how did this happen? Like, yeah. I'm just like, you just run into this with some of these films, and you go, I don't understand how this got made.
Well, there was a trend with the Canadian tax shelter stuff at the time where there was this. Somehow it just happened where with Meatballs, it became this trend of films with balls on the end of the title. So you had Meatballs, then you had Screwballs, which I think is one we'll cover next year when we come back to the series. But so you had Meatballs, you had Screwballs, you had Oddballs, you had Goofballs, and so
we need to do a balls series.
I guess because that was like one of the biggest kind of trends in these sort of things. Like it was like balls on the end was like a recognizable kind of title thing that caught people's attention apparently and sold more movies. So it only made sense that some of these productions who were just making a shitty camp movie that no one gives a fuck about, stick Meatballs onto the title and people will watch it, right? So
that's as good an explanation as any, because then ultimately what that means is, they kind of took the first film, which was this kind of heartwarming little comedy with Bill Murray. You're just taking that balls, thing and Meatballs and then connecting it to Porky's. And, so Porky's and Meatballs kind of go together, right? It's, balls and shaft, Yeah. And then, you just kind of move right into, we're just sequelizing the shit out of it and just trading out a name. I mean, it's almost like the Of the Living Dead thing, but for like shitty 80s comedies.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's kind of fascinating. What do you think of the main actress in this?
You're talking Sally Kellerman as Roxy.
Sally Kellerman. Sorry, I couldn't forget. I didn't have the name in front of me. So yes,
she's really good. But of course, her character is giving the worst fucking advice she could She dresses this guy up like a frat boy racist, racist too. Could be a racist,
sure.
But frat boy rapist is what I was meaning to say. And then basically tells him go out and rape women. That's basically what
no means yes. No means yes.
Yes.
And then, but at least he gets it. At least like the biker chick, he takes out into the woods, into the swamp there. At least she lets him know in no uncertain terms that like sometimes no means no. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, you can kiss my tits, but you're not going any farther down there. And then
and then when she eventually when the good deed she ends up doing is for Wendy. And, play a little hard to get. And then, like, the advice I gave him, he's going to come right after you. And then you're going to go wander and play in the beach volleyball. So,
if I was Wendy, I'd be like, fuck this guy. Because this Rudy is – he's kind of shit anyway. Like he
is a total chode. He is a total chode. I mean, she's gonna fulfill her little childhood fantasy of having sex with this guy that she's kind of always wanted to, and then she's gonna move out of this shitty place. She's gonna go to New York. She's gonna go and be one of the people in Perfect Timing. She's gonna go be an artist in Perfect Timing, and like
she's got
really interesting art.
Yeah, she's got that sort of like new wave girl group kind of thing going on with her look and everything, and like what the fuck is wrong with you, Rudy? If she was throwing herself at me, I would have nothing but time for her.
Yeah, no, she's great, but because she's not the like conventionally attractive blonde in a bikini, we're taught by these movies that like she's hideous, but really she's clearly the most interesting character in the film. Until we get to the Love Goddess, when we actually find out her background.
Yeah, Shannon Tweed.
She's working on her PhD in sociology.
Yeah, her PhD in sociology in lingerie. She's just hanging out in lingerie.
She's hanging out in lingerie at this like shitty river bar place and like studying sociology. Like, I do this,
Yeah, as you do.
The academic market is really shitty right now, so any place to stay and kind of work on your dissertation, completely acceptable. Like it's quiet. Nobody bothers her because Mean Gene literally throws them cartoon style through the roof.
Although it's kind of weird because is she like engaging in any fucking activity with any of these guys who sneak up there? Because some of them get up there and they get up there for a few minutes before they're thrown out. So I'm kind of thinking maybe she's having a little fun on the side with some of these guys who are sneaking up there. But
it's possible. I mean, I just from the way she treats Rudy, I kind of get the feeling that it's more they come up there and she just kind of doesn't. She's just kind of nonplussed by the betting. Although the betting is kind of a fascinating aspect of this, right? It's kind of an interesting little plot point that they're taking bets on this. That there's this little traveling sideshow thing where they're
they just wheel it out real quick.
They just wheel it out and they're taking bets. So there's this whole population of people betting on this that they all know what's going on. Yeah. So there's this subculture and. It's all run by these yuppie assholes because of course it is.
And listen, Mean Gene obviously knows this is going on.
Right. He's on the take. He's on the take.
I guess because otherwise he'd shut this down. He would get his river rat buddies. They would stomp a mud hole in all these yuppie assholes, and they would be done with in one day.
It'd be done.
And the Adonis, and so we got a little bit of bestiality as well in this film. So I guess that's your raunch factor there, because you have
that goes to bachelor party. That's the bachelor party effect,
Yeah. So you got the sort of nympho girlfriend of the main asshole who ends up going out. And actually, this is kind of again, I kind of wonder if Kevin Smith stole from this movie when he was thinking of Kinky Kelly and the Sexy Stud. For Clerks 2, just like we were kind of pondering whether he was stealing from the one where they go into the porno.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and neither one of us can think of it.
I have it right here. The Party Animal. There we go. The Party Animal.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm. And by the way, I did. Not that I expected a response, of course, but I did tweet Kevin Smith saying, "Did you steal that scene from the Party Animal and make Clerks out of that? Did you do that?" And I'm kind of thinking he might have saw this film as well and kind of stole that idea of Kinky Kelly and the Sexy Stud. You think you're getting this hot chick who's gonna do a bestiality show, and it turns out it's totally different. But it's kind of the same idea here.
It kind of felt it definitely felt familiar. I mean, it goes in a little bit different direction here, but it definitely felt a little familiar. So, but then again, when I saw Clerks 2, I was thinking about Meatballs 3. So there's that too. This is kind of fun. I like it. It's diverting. It's probably worth watching just for Wendy. I mean, that actress went on. She had a nice little career. She did a bunch of TV up to the kind of late 90s, and I don't think I've seen anything else that she was in, but she's great. Oh, the wet T-shirt contest. I remember that being way longer.
Way too short.
It's like girls. It's done,
Yeah, it's two girls and it's done. And I mean, the girl who won definitely deserved the win because wow. But
and then she gets with Rudy,
Yeah, and she's blind, so. Apparently, she's also really stupid if she thought she pulled his dick off that easily. But, hey, whatever. I guess it works as a joke at the very least. But, yeah. For
the 12-year-old audience of this film, that's who it's meant for.
I mean, the wet T-shirt contest in Hot Dog the Movie is 2 or 3 times the length of this. And
yeah. No, vastly superior in Hot Dog the Movie. And yet, I remembered this, growing up, but I remembered it being an extended sequence.
Yeah. It might be that TBS. It might be that TBS effect again, where they censor the movies, so you're always thinking, "Oh, there's got to be more."
Oh, I had this recorded off of HBO, so I had the real version of it. So that wasn't an effect in this movie, although I understand that. I think it's just one of those things where I saw it when I was 8 or 9, and I just remembered the idea of a wet T-shirt contest was so. Oh my God, how sexy is that? Not even understanding why at that point. But then, you can see their boobs through the wet. Oh, yeah. So I remember being that kid,
That's way better than them taking their tops off and letting you touch their boobs. That's way better.
Because they're, wet, I don't know. I don't know. I'm coming to realize that I was a dirty old man when I was 9 years old, and that's kind of what revisiting these has taught me, is that I have circled back around.
Yeah, I think most straight male 9-year-olds are dirty old men. Definitely when your sex drive is really starting to engage at that early age, and it's everything is super hot.
Yeah, when you don't understand enough to actually kind of know what's going on, but you're like really intrigued by it, and so that's that like uncomfortable like thing, you know.
Yeah,
but,
you're at the age where you're actually rooting for Rudy, where now it's like, man, I hope he fails. I hope he really fails. I hope Wendy finds a better dude than him, and he just fucking goes home the loser that he is.
Oh,
because...
I want Wendy and the Love Goddess to get together. Can we ship that? Can we be like, oh yeah, like
I get behind
that. Wendy finds her, like, she goes off to college, gets out of this shithole of a town she apparently grew up in, and finds her sexuality and hooks back up with the Love Goddess, and they go off and make beautiful love together, and possibly music with our friend Bonnie from Perfect Timing.
Oh yeah, Bonnie definitely. Bonnie and Wendy should definitely get together.
Yeah.
As far as characters in this movie, though, I'd actually substitute the Love Goddess for the Nympho girlfriend and the wet T-shirt contest winner, the blind chick.
Yeah. Sure.
I'd rather see that. That's just personal preference, of course. But
no, I could see that. I mean, I'm always gonna have a thing for Shannon Tweed, but you know, like that's the softcore '90s memories.
Yeah, definitely. That was her sort of heyday there, where she was doing all that stuff in her 40s. There, she was doing all those softcore stuff. She was the MILF of her time, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Before MILF was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have to do some of the American Pie next time too. We probably have to do that.
Yeah, we should. Oh man, almost kind of thinking the next sex comedy series, and you know, people listening, let us know if you think this is a good idea. We should make the American Pie franchise the end episode for the next sex comedy series, because that's a big franchise, man.
That is a big franchise. Oh my god, that's like what, 9 movies or something?
Something like that. You got the main ones that are like canon, and then you have the direct-to-video ones that are not considered canon, apparently. You know, as if really matters what's canon in the American Pie franchise. Jesus, so sad.
We got to work out like continuity references within the, you know, like, because I got to figure out the deep psychological insight of Stifler. You know, that's all it's going to be.
There's like 8 different Stiflers in that film series, like.
I stopped after 2. I watched the first 2 and I was done. Although Allison Hannigan, I got to see everything with Allison Hannigan eventually. So
yeah, I can get into that. Yeah, we'll put that down. That'll be a tentative final episode for the next sex comedy series we do. I think that'd be something.
Lee and Daniel talk for 4 hours about the American Pie series.
It might. It's not even a joke. That might happen. I mean, just to cover everything. It depends on whether, you know, if we're watching the films and we find them worthy enough. We might find most of them are like fucking Meatballs too, and then, you know, it's like, oh, we're just going to graze over them. But, Meatballs
we should
3,
move on.
Yeah, Meatballs 3 is perfectly fine, you know. It's got some nice raunchy stuff, could use more, but it's actually mildly diverting and entertaining, so, yeah.
Yeah.
And so now we can move on to the final film in the franchise so far. Who knows? We might get a Meatballs 5, or we might get a reboot at some point. That'd be something.
I think a rebooted Meatballs, like a raunchy Meatballs, like kind of continuation, not with a number after it, but I could see like Meatballs kind of coming back and being like this, like doing it now.
Who do you think they'd cast as the Bill Murray role though?
Oh,
would they do like a CGI'd Paul Rudd to make him look younger, or
what they do is they find some young person, like they find some up and coming young comedian to kind of do it, like, you know, like somebody like Ryan Reynolds 10 years ago would be perfect, you know. Yeah,
because he's got the same sort of sarcastic wit.
You find somebody like that who like isn't on the tip of our tongues, but like that's the way you do it.
Yeah. So we're doing Meatballs 4 now from 1992.
Welcome to Lakeside, where some of the hottest skiers have just landed a new hero.
I want you to meet our new recreation director, Ricky Wade.
He's got charm.
Oh, thank you, Victor. Oh.
He's a natural-born leader.
Come on, guys, let's do it. Come on, anything's possible if you want it bad enough. Look at Michael Jackson.
And he's got 2 weeks to turn these ski rats into superstars. It's a playground of fun and fantasy. where the scenery is breathtaking. The passion is pulsating.
Why did you leave me, Ricky?
Because I was afraid, Cal.
And the romance is hot.
I think I'm going to change that 10 to a 12.
Yeah.
But the competition wants to crash this party.
Are you going to put up or shut up?
And they'll stop at nothing to get what they want.
If you don't mind. All right, these girls are going to look like Smurfs.
Now,
Kelly,
it's a race for survival.
give me my skis.
Meatballs 4, to the rescue.
Directed and written by Bob Logan, starring the master, really. Corey Feldman as Ricky Wade, Jack Dance, personal favorite of mine, as Neil Pat Peterson, Sarah Douglas, there's a lot of personal favorites in this one. Sarah Douglas as Monica Chavez, or I guess it's pronounced Chavez or something like that in the fucking film, but whatever. Bo Jesse Christopher as Wes Ford, Brad Grunberg as Victor Thigpen, Paige Frentz as Jennifer Lipton, John Mendoza is Dick, Bentley Mitchum is Kyle Linick, Deborah Tucker is Kelly Peterson, Christy Thom, the lovely Christy Thom, as Hillary. Christy Ducati as Christy. She actually pops up in some sex comedies around this time. Bikini Car Wash Company, actually. She's in those two ones.
Ooh, nice.
And Lauren Hayes, who is another staple of softcore sexy movies around this time, as Lauren. And I'll let you get into the synopsis there, Daniel.
Do I really have to write a plot synopsis of this? Okay. Corey Feldman plays Ricky, a hotshot ski instructor who has just returned to his old job at a rinky-dink ski camp, but who is being pursued by his wealthy former employers to return to his former position. Ricky's the kind of snotty smartass that every 12-year-old boy in 1992 wanted to be. And in fact, most of the cast acts more or less like they have the emotional and sexual maturity of 12-year-olds, despite being obviously in their late 20s. There's a fat guy who ends up being a damn fine skier, despite being fat, which, as we all know, is a serious character flaw in these kinds of films. Although he does end up getting the one girl in the film portrayed by a Playboy centerfold, so I guess the joke's on us.
Yeah.
The film also stars Sarah Douglas as the owner of the snooty camp across the lake, attempting to use her leverage to make Ricky come back and work for her, a detail I only note because Miss Douglas is best known for playing Ursa in the two Donner Superman films, and I found myself wishing I was watching either of those instead. Hell, I found myself wishing I was watching Summer Job instead.
Oh, come on now. We got to take that one back.
Yeah, the movie ends with a high-stakes water ski competition. Is that even a thing? And a fourth wall break. Whatever.
This is not as bad as Summer Job. Come on now. I think you're stretching it a little bit there. This is bad. This is pretty terrible, but it's not as bad as Summer Job. I will fight you on that. It
does not have a creepy serial killer guy the way Summer Job did. But other than that, like this is in no way superior to Summer Job.
Oh, come on now! How can you look down on Corey Feldman here doing his darndest to
Corey Feldman post License to Drive had there are better Corey Feldman fake sex comedies than this. There's one where they go to it's like Private Resort or something like that. And Corey Feldman's in that. Actually, both Corys are in that. That's superior to this.
That's National Lampoon's Private Resort, I believe, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, the Ricky Wade character, when you think about it, do you remember Poochie from The Simpsons? That cartoon character?
I do. It's totally that fucking guy.
Yeah.
This is the most 1992 character that ever existed anywhere.
This movie is so of its time. The amount of neon in this can kind of damage your eyes, honestly.
This is the only era in cinema history when anyone ever thought that neoprene neon jet ski gear was cool.
They had neon bikinis for and those are the worst looking bikinis I've ever seen. They have these weird angles that were probably developed by the elder gods from H.P. Lovecraft, because they're not supposed to be human angles that we can perceive or whatever. Because some of these what are you wearing? I'd rather just see you not wear anything. Honestly.
That's just a thing, though. I mean,
But I mean, goddamn, this is probably the most 1992 movie to ever come out of 1992. Like it's the fashion is that bad. The hair, like how can you possibly have hair like those hairstyles? Zach Morris would laugh at those hairstyles. That's how bad those hairstyles are. Because I got to ask you an honest question here. Could you tell a difference between the two dickhead guys and then the main dickhead guy who was because
I can tell no difference between any of the characters whatsoever except for the fat guy and the one played by Corey Feldman and Hilly, and that's only because she had slightly more melanin in her skin than the others.
Yeah.
That was it. And then Jack Nance, who I thought I apologize, but I thought was Brian Doyle Murray at first when I was kind of. But not out of any insulting thing, but I'm like, Brian Doyle Murray, like he really like Bill Murray wouldn't come back, so like they got the brother to like be in the shitty fourth version, you know? Like that was literally my thought when I started rewatching this.
He could almost
Brian Doyle Murray. I got a ton of Brian Doyle Murray funny. I'm gonna like lay on Lee this week, and then like, oh no, it's not him.
If this movie was set in like the 2010s or something, that could be like the aged Tripper. running his camp or something, but yeah, no, the great Jack Nance fucking slumming in here, but giving his all at the same time. Like he's probably the best performance in this. I think.
Oh yeah, no, definitely the best performance.
But man, his fucking eyes—he's got the crazy eyes going in every fucking scene.
Sarah Douglas is doing some great stuff.
Well, yeah, she's doing way more than she had to. I gotta give it to her. Yeah. No, this movie is terrible. I'm not going to defend it on that level, but I'm not going to fucking throw it under the bus that is Summer Job and run it over and then reverse over it as well. That's just no. There's some fun stuff here. The nudity is a lot of fun. I like it. Some of the women are a little too cosmetically augmented for my liking, but wow, Christy Thom, whew, goddamn.
She's pretty gorgeous.
Yeah, I could get behind that, literally and figuratively.
It's a shame she doesn't have a personality. But,
but I mean, she doesn't need one. She just needs to be one of the victims of, what's his name here? Victor, who spends most of the movie spilling liquids on women. That's basically what he trips over something, liquid spills on a woman. Yeah.
Really, you could argue that that's a visual metaphor for his premature ejaculation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I like to think that he and Hillary have this like kind of fetish relationship where she like humiliates him for like coming too soon all the time, and it's basically just like teasing him, and then he comes too soon, and then like she gets her rocks off by him eating her out because he's come too soon. Like it's.
So you also do get the ejaculation joke where the guy spills his milkshake on his shorts. And then it cuts to another scene where he has not cleaned it off yet, and Corey Feldman points it out. Oh, I see you came there in your shorts. How's it going, buddy?
Corey Feldman does get some. They wrote him some decent lines, and by decent I mean like when I was 12 years old, I kind of like already saw through a lot of this.
Oh, I bet he's regretting the Michael Jackson line that he had in this, like. Oh,
that Michael Jackson line is like. I was kind of so I was watching this and I was having some beer because you need a little bit of alcohol to get through this movie, and I was kind of drifting off slightly in terms of like kind of following the plot, and then that like Michael Jackson line showed up and I went, oh, like I was right back in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, that's deeply uncomfortable. That's deeply uncomfortable.
Especially since in years later, Corey Feldman has come out basically talking about all the people in the movie industry who has raped him and other people, apparently. Yeah, wow. Dark. Pretty fucking dark at this point, right?
Yeah.
This film isn't good, but I don't hate it. Like, I can watch it. It's got some nice skin. It's got a nice casual tone to it. It's got Jack Nance being Jack Nance, and I'm always behind that.
It's just really dumb. Like for me, like that's the like it really does just encapsulate that 25-year-old men acting like 12-year-old boys.
Yeah. Sort of and again, it's not a Meatballs movie.
So yeah, in this one, like, explicitly was another, like, it had another title. It was gonna be this whole other thing, and they just called it Meatballs. Like, I bet the only thing they did was just put the Meatballs title on it. I would be surprised if the script these guys got did not have the word Meatballs on it. You know?
Yeah, no. The movie was supposed to be called like Happy Campers or something like that. So it almost sounds like something National Lampoon would have picked up. Other than it being in a summer camp, I think the biggest motif here that really kind of connects it to the other Meatballs films is the bus ride at the beginning, like the crazy bus ride. That seems to be, although it wasn't so much in the third film, but
there is a bus ride in the third film, though. You know,
there is, yeah.
Bus to the drunken revelers sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question here.
Mm-hmm.
Would you attend a 2-week summer camp as an adult that teaches you how to water ski?
I would if Christy Thon was going to be at that fucking summer camp.
Fair enough. I
mean, if she ends up falling for Victor Thigpen, I have a good chance of getting Christy Thon. Like, let's just put it that way. Like, I got a great chance.
I get that. Although I think she disliked him because he's a teddy bear. You know, it's just
I can be a teddy bear for it too. I'm telling you right now. Like, I can be warm and cuddly as fuck. I'm telling you.
There's a fundamental disconnect for me, and this kind of goes back to this idea of, like, who is this film for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, you look at the first film and you're watching it, and it's kind of like the main characters, the adult characters, are counselors for kids, and so there are kids in the film. By the time we get here, you've literally got people busing into summer camp on a yellow school bus who are clearly in their 20s, or, you know, even if they're supposed to be like 18, 19, you know, that sort of age range. They're coming and they're taking a 2-week ski camp.
It's never really explained, is it? Because it has the same sort of story.
It's showing up and being like, I'm going to get laid on this trip. And it's like, what is this? Like, this makes the economic reality of this is just fundamentally broken. You know?
Yeah, like, I mean, you have to make up your own story at this point. You got to think these are all rich kids or something being bused here, because rich parents trying to get rid of their problem children, apparently, you know, get them out of the house for the summer. Because, yeah, there's no real kids in this. And you get the sense that maybe this place was hosting kids at some point, because Jack Nance's character says, oh, we used to have like 80 fucking people here. So you knew it was probably going to be like a lot of kids. But now it's just everyone's like counselor age. And it's just like, obviously, like, these are a bunch of rich douchebags who someone's unloading them on this fucking camp for 2 weeks to get rid of them, right? Like,
but then you got to think, like, how much are they making in this camp? So you got to think, like, you got like a staff of, say, 10 people.
Yeah.
Those 10 people each make, let's say they make like $10,000. You know. So you got like $100,000 that's being paid in. You only got like 20 people in the camp, so each of these people is paying like $5,000 for 2 weeks of like ski instruction and access to vaguely defined pussy from Corey Feldman. Like,
hey, you know, if I had the money, Christy Thom, and then you got like Christy Ducati and Naraya Davis and Lauren Hayes as well, and the main girl. I think it's Paige French is the main one, or no, yeah, maybe Paige French, the redhead, the one who's not enhanced in any way and doesn't need to be.
Is she the one that ends up with Corey Feldman at the end of the film?
Yeah, the redhead. Yeah. So yeah, I honestly, if I had the money, this would be the summer camp I'd want to go to. Sure. I could stand Corey Feldman. Why not?
Fair enough. Sarah Douglas, really good in this.
Very hot as well. Very, very hot.
Yeah.
Always the hot Sarah Douglas. Goddamn.
I just kept wanting her to say Superman and then throw a manhole cover.
And yeah, she could. I'm not that into sadomasochism or anything like that, but if she was wearing her Ursa costume, she could do any number of nasty things to me that she wanted. No problem.
I get that. She threatens Corey Feldman, if you lose this water ski competition, which, by the way, is the winner of this water ski competition, like the two greatest water ski like teaching programs in the world.
Yeah.
So people who can afford to go to water ski training camp for 2 weeks are on the other side of this particular little shitty lake in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
So, like, okay, fair enough. And Ricky Wade is so good at teaching water ski that whichever camp has him will immediately gain in like notoriety and all that sort of thing. Is water ski jumping like a spectator sport? Is there actually like money behind this? Is there any kind of economic reality here?
Oh no. This is more boring than the fucking skiing and Hot Dog the movie. Like Hot Dog the movie actually had like confidence.
This is way more boring than the skiing and Hot Dog the movie is really cool.
Good, yeah.
This is nothing. Like when they've got like the gangsters who are like using the magic remote control to like make jet skis stop working, which whatever.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like I can't really even tell much of a difference. This is so visually uninteresting. There's 20 minutes of this movie that's just like water ski footage, and none of it has any interest whatsoever.
No. I mean, the only interest during those scenes with the jet skiing is whenever they cut to the scorekeepers who, the main bikini babe in the middle there who's like...
Yeah, it's the two dorky dudes, and then like the bikini girl who always like moves her little sign around to show her tits.
Yeah.
So you get to see her cleavage every time they cut to her.
But this almost kind of plays like a parody of these summer camp films to a certain degree. I mean, but it's not nearly as fucking clever at all. Like it seems like it kind of tries at the beginning and then it kind of tries at the end with the fourth wall breaking. But other than that, it's just like
It's just by the numbers. I mean, it's such. Of course, like he has the line like, "No, you're not seeing this at the. You're seeing it on a videotape. You're gonna hit rewind, save the 50 cents." It's like, because this screams direct to video to me. Like this is so obviously not a thing that anyone should ever have seen in a theater.
No, I mean, and they really dated themselves too doing that shit. It's like now any young person who's into titty flicks and wants, I want to see all these classic titty comedies from back in the day, like back in the old days in the 90s. They're going to look at this and like, what the fuck are they talking about?
I mean, it kind of makes sense that like in 1992, they weren't like necessarily looking forward to the DVD age. I mean, you can't necessarily blame them for that. Here's the mark of this movie. And this is kind of where I was trying to call attention to the fact that I was very young when I saw so many of these, This movie came out when I was 12. So, and I know we rented it it was either on HBO or whatever. So I saw it when I was 13, and I was already over it.
Yeah.
I was already done with this movie. By the time I was 13, I had moved on to other things. And this was before the rise of internet porn. I didn't have internet at that point. I just had better tits in my life than, I could get from Meatballs 4.
Yeah. I mean, it's not super raunchy or anything like that. And there's not a lot of interesting, sexy stuff going on. But I mean, really, worse than Summer Job again.
If you ask me which one I'd rather watch again, I would rather watch Summer Job again.
Oh my God, you are so off base on this one. It's just I will admit, as you did, on that same episode, my childhood memories of Summer Job at least kind of keep me going and keep me through that. Plus, you got Chantal, the cute redhead in that one, Yeah, but you got a really cute redhead in this one too.
You do, and you got Christy Tom, so there's that. But you don't have to look at Corey Feldman in Summer Job. So,
hey, I barely noticed Corey Feldman in this film, and I am.
Fair enough.
And as far as his early stuff goes, I'm a big Corey Feldman fan. By the way, I'll just throw that out there.
I would put License to Drive on our list. I think we should definitely do that at some point.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I mean, and I even kind of have sympathy for Corey Feldman because he's one of those guys who got chewed up and spit out by the system and royally fucked up. He can't help himself at this point.
He's perfect. A Dream a Little Dream is not a terrible film. I mean, there's a. I mean, he was just kind of that teen heartthrob who never kind of got over being a teen heartthrob. I mean, it's funny that in 1992 he was on his way down. This was him slumming it in this kind of because he had some movies flop, and suddenly he's doing Meatballs sequels. I mean, even again at 12 or 13 when I saw this, I'm already thinking wait, Corey Feldman's in this, and not in an excited way,
He was in a shit ton of this stuff at this point. I mean, both him and Corey Haim were both on the same sort of slump down at this point.
Yeah, they were both in the National Lampoon's Private Resort film. Yeah. That was kind of I think that was their last thing they did together, close to it.
They came back together for one of the Lost Boys sequels that came out in the 2000s, I believe. And that was the last. And although I don't think they filmed together at any point, they were just both in the same movie. So,
right, yeah. Well, fair enough.
But yeah, there's only one piece of trivia really on this, and it's a really sad one, by the way. But hey, let's go out on a downer with this film. Why not?
Let's do it.
Yeah. During filming, Jack Nance apparently received a call from his wife at the time, and she was going to commit suicide. And Nance tried to, prevent her from doing so, but she, he tried to console her over the phone and stuff, and send police there to stop her. But by the time they got there, she was already dead. So it's kind of a sad little thing on there, which sucks because both it's horrible and I love Jack Nance, and it's kind of sad to see him like trying his damnedest in this fucking film, and to know like the tragedy that was going on in his life at the same time. Yeah.
No, he's quite good in this. He's really got like a nice presence, and you actually sort of believe that like this is a guy who like is like a champion water skier, and he kind of hung up his skis. And
you saying this was that was stunt work? That wasn't him out there on the.
All I'm saying is they shot it from far enough away that I can't be sure.
Hey man, yeah, I mean, come on.
I believe he's a talented enough like actor to like spend the year learning to water ski before making this film. So that you got to get that like.
I will have no disparagement of Jack Nance. He was an Eraserhead motherfucker. He was in Twin Peaks. That motherfucker knows how to water ski like a champion. He can do the triple hinge or whatever the fuck it's called.
Right. Well, you do it 3 times instead of like 2.5.
And it's obvious the way they cut it that guy did not do it 3 times. It's
no, it's not even cut particularly well. Like you see this like a portion of the same swing 3 times. Yeah,
because the height he'd have to be to do that.
Yeah,
they do not show that there. He's like almost on the water for the different cuts,
and then they still like pretend like he did it 2 more times. Yeah, no, it's terrible. Yeah.
Unless they had the alien from Meatballs 2 flipping him, they might have been in the woods somewhere. Who knows?
It's interesting that like the series went like sci-fi fantasy for 2 parts, and then kind of comes back in part 4. It's like, no, we're gonna reach the gritty realism of like not having aliens and ghosts in our movie, we're gonna go back to our roots, and it's just gonna be kids at a summer camp. But really, it's like 20-something people.
And we're gonna wear neon colors so bright that everyone's got to wear those fucking Eskimo sunglasses, just so they can fucking see. Jesus, man.
We're gonna pretend like this is a ski movie where we're all wearing like brightly colored clothes. Yeah.
But I like this one. I'm not going to say it's great or anything. It's inoffensive. I mean, honestly, if we're stacking up, and I think we should sort of move on to that, where we're going to sort of rate what we've liked the best in the series. There is a massive chasm between Summer Job and this, but this would be like the second to last for me as far as the stuff we've done in this series. So, actually, I'll just throw it over to you first if you want to like mention what you think is kind of the best stuff we saw this time out.
Well, if we set aside Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, which I think is, the most film-like of the films, it's a real film and has historical importance, they clearly, that's the best, The real find for me was Perfect Timing. I legitimately really like that film. Maybe I've talked it up a little bit more, because like there is all that kind of softcore stuff that's kind of dull at the end. But really, for me, it's Papusha and her performance as Bonnie, which just elevates that above. I keep coming back to that, like how great she is in that film. So obviously, I love Eurotrip. I told my wife, because she was out of town last week, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, we did Eurotrip." She's like, "Of course you did, because you love that movie." And I'm like, "Ah." Hard Bodies was nice. I mean, that was one that you showed me. One not only I liked talking about more than I liked watching. I might go back and revisit that just to kind of watch it again at some point. The Scary Cave, I will always remember. It's really like little bits of these movies that I will kind of come back to. Yeah, probably Perfect Timing is definitely the one that really stands head and shoulders above the rest for me. I think that's a really, really interesting movie. Other than that, obviously, the one with the highest production values is Eurotrip, and then the one that's like a real like movie that has an idea behind it is Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, and those are the ones that really, kind of speak to me. So those are kind of my high points and low point. I mean, I don't actually think Meatballs 4 is worse than Summer Job, but I want to rewatch it less than Summer Job.
Oh my god, I can't even stand that. That's incomprehensible.
I mean, really, the worst of the things we saw was the first 45 minutes of Bikini Drive-In for me.
Oh well, and even then, you're even hurting me more now. I
understand that. Like that for me, it was just boring as shit. Like the last 45 minutes made up for it. I don't have any problem with that. But Summer Job is terrible, and I feel sorry for inflicting it on you. Except that we've now had a lot of fun talking about it.
No, I mean it was enjoyable to talk about it at least, and I think for me, my number 2 would be Bob Carrollton Alice, I think, is where I'd sort of sit that at. And probably the best thing I saw through this series, honestly, I'd probably go to Perfect Timing as well. I think I'm kind of thinking that's where I'm kind of sitting on that one, just because it really does have kind of everything I want in a sex comedy. It not only is it like, just lots of nudity and lots of sexy stuff going on, it had really interesting performances and stuff going on as well. So I think that's kind of where I sit on that. I think maybe I put Bob Carrollton Alice down a little bit just because it almost feels like it's kind of outside all the other ones we watched. So it kind of feels a little unfair kind of rating it at the same time. But
I totally agree. Like, Bob and Carrollton Alice is a very different thing than the rest of the stuff we discussed, which is kind of where I'm like, you just kind of set it aside and just kind of go, okay, this is clearly, if not the best, it's doing something different.
It's sitting on top with the rest of the cream, kind of floating, right? I mean, after that, I'm thinking my top picks are kind of like Eurotrip and the Cheerleaders. I love the Cheerleaders. I love that movie. That's a movie I rewatch. Not a lot, but it's one I do rewatch every once in a while just because it's fun. I mean, at the same time, once in a while, watch it for different reasons. But that's one I legit can just put on and watch it in the background and just be like, I enjoy it because it's just stupid and it's fun. And
well, the Cheerleaders definitely has some of the most interesting cinematography. And kind of when we talked about there's just this fascinating accidental art film thing kind of going on with that, which is fascinating. It just kind of doesn't mean as much to me as some of the other ones, but I was definitely a fan of that when I watched it. So I agree. I mean, it's funny you and I basically agree on broadly ranking all of these, kind of what goes on the bottom and what goes on the top.
I mean, under that, everything else kind of just coming from this episode, like Meatballs 2 goes down underneath Meatballs 4 for me. And is swirling somewhere with fucking Summer Job just because Meatballs 2 is such a fucking massive disappointment. I want those fucking cutscenes. I want some fucking nerd, some guy who's in the vault somewhere in the studio and finds the fucking reel that was cut from that film and puts it on DVD. Then I might re-rate it and re-rank it. But other than that, it's like, goddamn, I didn't get to see Misty Rose tits at all in this film. I'm really disappointed. God damn it.
So of the Meatballs films, what's your rating? So 2 is the bottom, 4 is right above that, and then I guess 1 and then 3.
Yeah, it's 1, 3, and
4,
2. Yeah, that's where I'd go. I'd sit on that.
I can agree. I mean, for me, 4, and I think this is kind of where you and I kind of differ a little bit in terms of just talking about films. Boredom is the immediate turnoff for me. The immediate, if you're boring, if you made a film and I just don't give a shit, that's you're gonna go to the bottom of my list.
Yeah.
Where Summer Job is just terrible, but terrible in kind of an interesting way. Whereas Meatballs 4 is terrible in the I just want to go to sleep and drink a lot way.
I can see that distinction. Yeah, I'll just say Meatballs 4 didn't bore me. I like looking at the girls more in that one than I like looking in Summer Job. Let's just put it that way.
I get that too. There's some nice skin in Meatballs 4. I will. Yeah. It's definitely the most nudity of any of the 4. I mean, no question.
You got 2 shower scenes. You got one that's they're not long or anything, but you got the first initial shower scene, and even leading up to that, you got the girls giggling and wearing towels and running to the showers and lifting their towels up and exposing their asses. And then you have the shower scene where the two gangster guys pour the blue stuff into the shower and make them all blue and shit. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, but
yeah. Perfect timing is definitely for me. That's the big find. I feel bad, and I feel bad like not saying more about One Night Only. But then once you find perfect timing, it's kind of like, yeah, no, that's clearly the really interesting one. You know?
Yeah, One Night Only is like the supplement that you go to after you watch Perfect Timing. I think that's kind of it. And yeah, I think maybe the only other question is, do you think this sex comedy series was better than the first one we did? Like, do you think you found more out of this one than the first one, or?
I think the lows were lower last time. Mm-hmm. I mean, Busty Cops. I actually re-listened to our Busty Cops episode just to kind of go back to it. Man, that's terrible. Not our episode necessarily.
Okay, you're not saying the episode. You're saying Busty Cops, the film. Okay,
Busty Cops is fucking awful. Like, you know, would I watch Busty Cops again before I watch Bikini Drive-In? That's the.
I would not. That's where I'd sit on it. Just because, again, it comes down to I really love the actors in Bikini Drive-In, so I'll watch them over and over again. But you know,
really, what re-listening to our Busty Cops episode made me want to watch some Angela Little films because we both had like nice things to say about her performance.
Well, next sex comedy series, if we do the American Pie film, she's in Bandcamp.
Nice. So we'll have to make sure to put that on the list. Yeah. The films overall, I think, were more like films this time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas last time it was kind of a lot of like, you know, I mean, The Beach Girls, I mean, it's fun, like it was, but there's no like story there. Whereas I think here we kind of focused a little bit more on stuff that really had ideas, and there was kind of like characters and, you know, some more interesting stuff. There was Summer Job was terrible, but I grew up with that, so I knew it was terrible. And, you know, so I don't know, like it was just a very different experience. And also, like last time we went on for like 8 weeks, whereas here we're done. Like this is over.
A little bit more concise this time out, yeah.
A little bit easier to kind of, because last time we definitely went on a little bit long, and I was kind of like, are we still watching these? Like, you know, like, not that I'm complaining about it, but at the same time, it is kind of like, oh my god, we got to move on from this. So
yeah.
So, despite the fact that we could do this every week, we could have a podcast and talk about these kinds of films every week, if that.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like our initial sex comedy series was kind of a catalyst that started really gaining us an audience. That was kind of, hey, you know, there's a couple people who were like, wow, this is really good, and they pointed out to other people, and we actually started getting listeners and stuff. So, I mean, there's definitely an audience out there for this stuff. I mean, if we were exclusively a sex comedy fucking podcast, we'd probably do pretty good for ourselves as far as...
We do way better than our, like, mix and match stuff that we do as we are, you know. So really what we're saying is, like, oh, yeah, we know people want to listen to this, but we're not going to do it.
Well, no, because we do what the fuck we want and what we're interested in doing, and that's what we're going to be transitioning over into after this. But I think next episode, if we can work it out, might be Tommy and what was the other one we were thinking of doing? Parents, yeah, with our friend Kit Power. So hopefully we can work that out.
Who, by the way, has a brilliant new RoboCop podcast where he is watching RoboCop with people and doing like commentary tracks once a month, and the first episode with our friend James Murphy is now up. So like, definitely go check that out. I have listened to that episode, and it is brilliant. And you might in the future hear a certain voice that you know, you're hearing right now on that podcast. But which, I mean, I've already recorded, but I don't know when it's going to go up. So
cool. All right, and we'll get a link in the show notes to Kit Power's RoboCop podcast too.
Talking awesome. RoboCop with Kit Power, which I'm sure if he shows up next week and this actually happens, he will talk a lot about his RoboCop podcast.
Yeah, so. And we'll let him pontificate about that as much as he desires. And then after that, it's going to be what, Johnny Mnemonic and Total Recall?
And Starship Troopers.
Oh, Starship Troopers. Okay.
Yeah.
That works for me. So we're taking a 2-episode break between series, and then once we come back from those two, we're going to be getting right into our spaghetti westerns, and that's going to be a big series.
Lee's been planning this since episode 1. Since not even episode 1, since like a year before episode 1, because we were talking about podcasting for a long time, and we always wanted to do spaghetti westerns, and finally it's happening, and I'm pumped, because most of the films that we're going to be watching I haven't seen.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
Because I've seen a bunch of spaghetti westerns, or, I've seen some, like, I understand the genre, but I haven't, actually sat down and watched some of the more obscure stuff. And so I've kind of let Lee to just give me some shit, and we're going to watch it all.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to kind of be aiming for in this initial run of the spaghetti western series, too. We're going to be sort of diverting from the typical Leone shit for the most part. Although we do have Once Upon a Time in the West, we're going to be doing
the Leone shit, like that shitty Leone director. That garbage.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood, what a clod.
That fucking nobody went nowhere. But I think we'll have some pretty interesting selections for you guys to listen to as far as spaghetti westerns go. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Very fucking excited to do that. And, so Daniel, tell people where they can find you on the old internet.
You can find me on Twitter at Daniel E. Harper if you want to listen to me rant on Twitter, which I do sporadically. If you want to listen to all the podcasts that I am on, including this one, you can go to oispaceman.com. I've got some kind of stuff coming up that might be a little bit exciting if you're kind of a sci-fi fantasy fan. But mostly that's, started out doing kind of all Doctor Who, and then kind of moved on, and we're doing some Red Dwarf, and we got some other stuff kind of coming up. But check me out either at Daniel Lee Harper on Twitter or oispaceman.com. That's kind of where all that goes. And I also write a weekly or every other week column with my wife over at ruditorumpress.com that's usually covering something about sex and gender and kink and that sort of thing, because that's all I really know how to talk about. So
and you can find us, of course, on TMBDOS.podbean.com. That's where you can find all of our links. You can get to our Facebook or YouTube and our iTunes from there.
Hold on. We have a Facebook page?
We do have a Facebook page. They Must Be Destroyed on Sight on Facebook, which is the single best way to get in contact with us if you have comments, questions, suggestions, criticisms, anything you want to throw at us. We are open to that. We try to respond to everything. We definitely want more and more interaction. Just keep throwing stuff at us, guys.
If you have access to either the missing reel of Meatballs 2 or the missing reel of Magnificent Ambersons, we will be equally interested in
Yeah, both would be equally valued on this podcast. That's how we roll. Also, I will mention, although I fucking hate iTunes and I really don't check up on this shit, if you so would be kind enough, go on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, give us a review. That apparently opens up our audience. I've tried to do this for other people's podcasts, but apparently there's like a region blocking thing in iTunes where this lowly Canadian cannot go into an American podcast and say how awesome it is. I've done 3 reviews now on Badass Boobs and Body Counts, and not one of them has fucking shown up on their fucking iTunes reviews. So there's some goddamn bullshit going on in iTunes, but
it's the Apple Gallipoli. It's clearly, it's corporate America. Enforcing parochial, borders and shit.
It sucks because all the podcasts I listen to, they're like, support us, go to iTunes, write a review, and I'm like, I'm gonna do that, and then I go and do that, and then it doesn't show up, and it's like, oh fuck.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah,
life is terrible.
Yeah,
don't support Apple products, really.
No, I mean we have to live in Apple's world, but we don't have to accept every goddamn thing they throw at us. Let's put it that way. But until next week, thank you very much, guys, for listening. Thank you for joining me, Daniel. And we're gonna go now. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. For past episodes, links to the host's other stuff, and links to podcasts and websites of similar interest, please visit us at tmbdos.podbean.com. There you can also find links to us at iTunes and YouTube, as well as our Facebook group link, which is the best way to get in touch with us. We welcome all comments, questions, movie review suggestions, and criticisms, and we do our best to respond to everyone. You can also find us at Daniel's recently launched oispaceman.com, where you can find his sci-fi themed podcasts about Doctor Who and Red Dwarf. Thank you. Drive through.